Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and today we are talking about weird news via social media. Sometimes we talk about weird animal stories, weird human stories, and these are stories that are a little strange that come to us from social media. So at least our first two stories come to us from social media. That would be Area 51, the storming of Area 51, and Face Up, and doesn't mean that Russia has all of our pictures. We are going to talk about those two stories first, and then a few other weird news stories to round out the episode. We're going to start with Area 51 because that's just, it's been around. It's been going around for a while, and it's not going away. If you haven't heard of this, you probably don't spend much time on social media or spend time around people who talk about social media. I don't know. It's just everybody, I see it popping up on social media. I've been hearing people talk about it. It's very kind of crazy and sort of funny. So late last month, that would be the end of June, 20-year-old Maddie Roberts created a Facebook page or group asking its attendees to converge in the southern Nevada desert to raid the highly classified U.S. Air Force base known as Area 51. Yes, he created a Facebook group and said, let's go raid Area 51. Let's find out what's actually in there. There's, of course, a ton of folklore surrounding this secretive facility. It's been the subject of, movies and conspiracy theories and everything. And it's within the bounds of the Nevada Test and Training Range, specifically regarding UFOs and aliens. So, of course, curiosity is high about the area. The conspiracy theories have been going on for the 1950s, but Robert's own curiosity in the site led him to create what he now says is a satirical event called Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. Within days, the page had over 1 million people attending the event scheduled for September 20th. Nearly a month after its original posting, it has gone viral and spawned offshoot memes. Oh, the memes. There's so many memes. I can't even begin to describe to you how many memes there are. Prompting the U.S. government to respond with a warning to trespassers, only saying the area is an open training range. Yeah, so don't try to storm Area 51. Roberts has since retracted his original post, calling it a joke in an interview with KTNV. The Bakersfield College student said, "I don't want anyone to actually get hurt with this. It started out as just from a pure stroke of imagination. It was meant to be funny. I want to do something cool out there now that we have a bunch of people, but I don't want anybody to get hurt." Well, yeah, because mob mentality could be really super dangerous. Let's just put that out there. Realizing that the unintentional affair may still bring extraterrestrial enthusiasts to the area on September 20th, Roberts instead has proposed a music festival take place, one focused on EDM. He has suggested hosting a festival with an assortment of talent ranging from EDM, indie rock, and up-and-coming artists. He told Time that he's had artists reach out to him through social media interested in performing at the event. He is a California native, and he recommends the alternative event be fun and educational with art installations instead of a military takeover. However, the accidental Facebook event may also have unforeseen consequences to this desolate landscape. Let's hope not, but it could. Hotels in the nearby tourist town of Rachel, Nevada, have already been in contact with Roberts regarding the proposed gathering. Rachel, with its close proximity to Area 51, caters to alien aficionados. The small town has alien-themed gift shops, restaurants, and even hotels. However, with limited resources, this town is not capable of catering to the hundreds, if not thousands, of fans a festival or a storming of Area 51 may bring. Whether the EDM-focused festival will take place is yet to be seen. However, it is a much safer alternative than its original intention. For now, fans of both EDM and the extraterrestrial may have something to look forward to in just a couple of months. I'm glad that it's going in a different direction. Obviously, storming Area 51, while kind of funny in an abstract way, really is a bad idea, and you wouldn't want mob mentality to take over and then people to get hurt at the worst, arrested at the least. A music festival could be a good alternative. I don't know if you can pull it off in 2 months, although in this day and age, anything is possible. Again, though, you have to think about the venue, and is there enough room for as many people as could show up? And where are they going to stay? Is it going to turn into Woodstock with people just camping out everywhere? It could be very interesting. The memes, as I said, have been everywhere and prevalent, and oh my goodness. I actually saw one article that I can't remember where it was. I forgot to bookmark when I saw it. I saw it on Facebook today. And it said, instead of storming Area 51, come and adopt these pets. And they had pictures of the pets that were up for adoption, and they were wearing little tinfoil hats. It was so cute. They were capitalizing on this idea of storming Area 51, but making it so, don't go out and do something crazy that could get you arrested or shot. Instead, help a life. Come and save a life. And the dogs in their little tinfoil hats, aluminum foil, I guess now, we don't really have tinfoil. Aluminum foil hats were adorable. So I appreciate when things like this, I appreciate people's creativity when something like this goes viral and they say, let's piggyback off of that. What can we do with that? Sometimes it's pandering, but other times it can be for a good cause. And if the festival is pulled off, I don't know if that's necessarily a good cause, but certainly a more positive way to focus the energy that has come out of this Facebook group. And if you're looking for followers on Facebook, I guess this is one way to do it. I don't know if there's any way to capitalize on that, but hey, when I was 20, well, Facebook wasn't around when I was 20, but when I was 20, I never would have thought to create a group like this. So it makes me laugh. One of the memes that has come out, or not one, but a genre of meme that has come out of this is one day everyone's storming Area 51 and then boom, they're completely distracted by FaceApp. And there's that one meme, I'm sure you've seen it a million times. There's a couple walking, and the male of the couple is turned he has his head turned back over his shoulder, and he's kind of making an ooh face at a woman who is not the girl he's with. The girl he's with is making a really face. And so people have made this into a meme 1,000 different ways of all the things that he is looking at and the girlfriend is grumpy about. And so in this case, the girlfriend is Area 51 and the girl that he's looking at is FaceApp. And yeah, so really anything can be a meme. We are going to talk about FaceApp next, but let's go ahead and take our first break of the podcast. And then when we come back, we'll talk about what you're going to look like when you're 80. Stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and I will be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about Area 51, and just like everyone else with their short attention span when it comes to things that are trending, we are just moving on. We're moving on to FaceApp. And FaceApp has been around, but it recently went viral and started trending with the aging app, so you can see what you look like when you are 80, older at any rate. I have not done it. I kept seeing it. People kept posting pictures. The pictures of the babies are the ones that are, it's like the curious case of Benjamin Button. But people were posting pictures. One of my favorite / most disturbing friends, no, she's not disturbing. Her post was disturbing. Friend posted that her husband likes to take pictures of her while she's sleeping because he thinks she looks dead, which first off, okay, dude, stop it. I mean, go ahead and take pictures of her when she's sleeping, but not because she looks dead. How's that cute? But then with FaceApp, she really looks dead. And yes, she looked dead. It was not pleasant. I was like, oh, no, I do not need to see my friend looking like she's in a science fiction show, suddenly having aged 60 years and died right there. So, like I said, I have not done FaceApp, but many of my friends have the aging app. And so, of course, it came out and everybody was sidetracked by it. People were using it on celebrities. Celebrities were using it on themselves. There's one picture that, that one picture of the Kardashian-Jenner women where they're all kind of in, like, not fully underwear, but like panties and tank tops and those sorts of things. Well, they did the aging app with that, and it's kind of funny, but it's also like, put some clothes on. No, actually, no, if you're old, you should be able to pose like that if you want to, but still, people are using it in very interesting, very strange ways. But then there was this whole thing of, oh my goodness, FaceApp is from Russia, and now they have all your data, and what are you doing? So if you haven't used it, good on you. I have other people who were posting, I don't need FaceApp and the aging app because I can just look at all the members of my family and see what I'm going to look like in however many years. This says the phone app's new filter will make you look 30 years older. I don't know that that's completely true. I guess it depends on the picture, but it does seem like everyone is talking about it, and the hashtag, which I hadn't mentioned, is called hashtag age challenge, so you can try it on FaceApp. And like I said, I have friends who say they don't need to have FaceApp because they know what they're going to look like. I am not actually sure what I'm going to look like. The women in my family don't seem to age like, you know how some families, it's almost like they have clones and everyone kind of ages in the same way. We don't seem to have that. So I'm just going to wait and see how I age because I think that will be more interesting. But the gist of this, of course, is that if you supply a photo of yourself, the app uses AI to pattern how you age. Although FaceApp, didn't thin out, shorten, or gray my hair, the author says. It did wrinkle my forehead, put bags under my eyes, and add lots of loose skin around my chin. Future me has some deep smile lines. Well, that's good, future you. But before you dive in, you should know something. This is an article on CNET. Some people are concerned that FaceApp's privacy clause gives the company license to use your photos broadly after you upload them to the company's servers. On the other hand, security researchers suggest that FaceApp does not take photos of your face and transfer them to Russia. This is the concern, is Russia getting copies of your face, which when I think Russia, I just think Vladimir Putin sitting in his office with looking at everybody's FaceApp pictures. Sorry, that makes me giggle. Anyway, FaceApp's developers are located in Russia, but they don't, security research that FaceApp does not take photos of your face and transfer them to Russia for improper use. These researchers found that only the original pictures you upload go to the company's server to create the aged version of yourself. They have not reported any malicious findings. So that's maybe encouraging. I mean, they do still have that picture that you post, and some people I know uploaded a lot of pictures, but they don't get all of your pictures, it sounds like. It's not being used for malicious purposes. But this is a phone app. You can download the Face app for either iPhone or Android. Then you either upload a photo from your camera or take a new photo for the app, and you need to give the app permission to access your camera or your photos, but you can always turn off these permissions later. Once you have selected the picture, you scroll to the right and tap age. You have options. Your age options are original, young, young 2, and old. Young and young 2. They could have come up with better names, but select old to see yourself magically age in seconds. If you choose the young filters, you'll get smoother looking skin. Oh, that's nice. Tap apply if you want your original and old age pictures to show side by side. Tap layouts and select duo, then tap the old icon. To share your photo on social media, you tap the down arrow in FaceApp's top right corner. You can then select Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or other to share your aging journey with all of your friends. So, did you do it? Did you do the age challenge? If so, what did you think of yourself 30 years older, or however many years the app aged you, or you think the app aged you? Like I said, I haven't done it, so I cannot speak to how it made me look, but I can speak to how it made friends look, and some of them looked very much like their parents. Some of them did not. Some of them used it on their babies, and that was weird. So, again, it was like the curious case of Benjamin Button. So let's go ahead and move on. And speaking of social media and memes, I keep seeing people posting things like, I was today years old when I found this out. And as the Weird News podcast, we often talk about weird history or interesting history. It doesn't have to be weird in a, pejorative sense, as you know, but interesting history. For instance, when we talked about graham crackers. And I can't remember how this came up. I was talking to my parents maybe, or somebody, I don't even remember. I know that my husband and I were talking to my parents, and somehow we were wondering why root beer is called root beer when it doesn't contain any alcohol, or maybe my brother made root beer. That was it. I knew I'd get there. My brother has decided that he wants to experiment with brewing, and he made root beer, and my mom was listing all the ingredients in it. And so we were like, well, I wonder why it's called, root beer with the, and I'm sorry, I know, I say root beer, I'm from Montana. Root beer, I just feel like it's too hard to say, root beer. At any rate, why is it called beer if it's not alcoholic, and why is it called root beer? There's a ton of ingredients in it. As you know, this is it's a popular soft drink. It's often paired with vanilla ice cream for a float. And, it's common in the summer. Maybe you have an A&W near you. Interesting fact, I used to live in Lodi, California, where the original A&W is. It is still there, and it has a ton of really cool memorabilia. So that was fun. I went and visited there. Root beer isn't my favorite, so I didn't really need to go to A&W on a regular basis, but I did go because it was the original one, and I felt like I needed to go at least once, and I believe I took people there when they came to visit. Not I believe, I did. I was just trying to remember exactly how many times I had been. Anyway, so Why is this sweet soda that is paired often with vanilla ice cream to make floats called root beer? And the answer, of course, lies in the history of the drink. Most food historians, that would be a fun job, I think that it's likely that the first versions of root beer started out as small beer, a beverage brewed from herbs, bark, and berries. Small beer was popular in medieval Europe, where rampant water pollution had a tendency to make people sick. So brewed drinks like tea and beer were considered the healthier option. The same was true in early colonial America before safer water facilities could be developed. Small beer contained alcohol, usually between 2% and 12%. The beverage was so commonplace that it turns up in a variety of classical literature, including several of William Shakespeare's play and Vanity Fair by William Thackeray. So it originally apparently started out as at least some alcohol content, depending on how much, between 2 and 12%. I hope you would find out before you started drinking which it was. You might have a reaction. But we're going to talk more about the origins of the name of root beer, but we are going to take our second break of the podcast. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. We are talking about root beer and why it is called that. We were discussing before the break how food historians have looked into it. So fast forward a few centuries from things being brewed because of bad water quality, and you find pharmacists attempting to create a miracle drug, of course, or a cure-all. You always heard about elixirs and snake oil salesmen and those elixirs that would cure everything. And this was in the late 19th century. In fact, many of the popular carbonated beverages today have their roots in such attempts, which is funny because since we're talking about root beer, we actually talked about Coca-Cola a few episodes ago, and it had similar historical origins. Historians generally believe that root beer was created on accident by a pharmacist experimenting with a variety of roots, herbs, bark, and berries used in those small beer recipes in order to make a brew to cure every sickness. Wouldn't that be awesome? The original root beer was sold as a syrup for consumers to water down into a type of cordial. It was both sweet and bitter, probably not unlike cough syrup today. Yuck. And obviously didn't take off as a beverage you buy for anything other than potentially curing a sickness. It should be noted that it's unknown whether or not the original pharmacist commonly credited as the creator of root beer was actually Charles Hires. Obviously, types of root beer had been around for centuries, so he can't accurately be described as the quote-unquote inventor. He was, however, the first one to come up with a recipe that was widely marketable, and that's why he is given the credit. According to his biography, in fact, Hires ran across a delicious tea recipe while he was on his honeymoon, which he decided to replicate and sell as a cure-all. However, the honeymoon story has little evidence to back it up, and it's likely that Hires was simply experimenting with various ingredients until he came up with a recipe that worked. He began selling dry packages of the tea mixture in his drugstore and later developed liquid concentrate, which people could then mix with water. Initially, the mixture was called Hires Root Tea, and as it was brewed like tea from the dry packages, the packets cost 25 cents and supposedly could make up to 5 gallons of tea. Wow, I wonder how big the packets were. The root in the name of Hires concoction came from its main ingredient, the sassafras root. Hires changed the name of his product from tea to beer sometime before the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition in 1876. It's likely that he changed the name to make the beverage more appealing to the working class. In the midst of the second wave of the temperance movement, the name caused outrage amongst the movement's leaders. Hires, on the other hand, advertised root beer as the temperance drink, arguing that it had no alcohol and was a great alternative to alcoholic beverages. Thus, root tea became root beer. And, yeah. Interesting. The name change turned into a great marketing scheme. At the Philadelphia Exposition, Hires handed out free cups of his brew, gaining new customers. It's likely that marketing the product as beer was the key to its success, and he soon was bottling the root beer and selling concentrated syrups to soda fountains. He even made root beer kits available for individuals to make their own root beer at home. Root beer continued to be marketed as a health beverage with the slogan, "Join health and cheer, drink Hires root beer." Funny enough, in 1960, the United States Food and Drug Administration banned the main ingredient, oil from the sassafras root, because of research proving it was a carcinogen and also contained safrole, which damages the liver. Not exactly healthy. This is not a cure-all if it's damaging your liver. Because of this, today, root beer typically contains an artificial sassafras flavor rather than the real thing. So, at this point, the whole name, according to this article, is a lie. It's neither root nor beer. And as the coffee talk lady would say, if you remember that skit from SNL in the 90s, it's neither root nor a beer. Talk amongst yourselves. But actually, don't talk amongst yourselves too much, because we do have one more story before we wrap up this episode. And that is the question of, are today's teens growing horns? Yes, are they? I never thought that I would ask that question, but it was brought to my attention, and even Time has an article on the subject. So apparently, more than a year ago, a pair of Australian researchers published a paper in Scientific Reports where they noted that a surprising number of young people were developing bone growths on the backs of their skulls. They posited that this was due to the amount of time they spent looking down at screens. Then this month, well, let's see, when was this published? June. So in June, the BBC cited the paper in a story about modern life's impact on the skeleton. And within a matter of days, headlines from across the globe reported that teenagers were growing horns. I just think of, like sci-fi with demons when they have the horns that come out of their heads like ram's horns. This is what I'm picturing. The paper is noteworthy in that it potentially reflects one way our physical bodies may be adjusting to our ever-present gadgets, but the implications likely aren't as terrifying as those headlines suggests. Apparently, we aren't growing ram's horns yet, and certainly not out of the backs of our necks. But in 2016, the University of the Sunshine Coast, Professors David Shahar and Mark Sayers found that out of 218 people ages 18 to 30, about 40% had a bone growth near the base of the skull called an enlarged external occipital protuberance, or EEOP, which is easier to say. Let me just point that out. They built on that in the 2018 study by examining X-rays from 1,200 people ages 18 to 86. In that study, a third of the X-rays showed growths. People ages 18 to 30 were the most likely to have an EEOP, which surprised the researchers who write in the study that they'd expected older adults to have the highest risk. In theory, constantly tilting your heavy head forward to look at screens instead of holding it upright as it's meant to sit may strain the neck and back of the head enough to result in bone growth in the surrounding tendons and ligaments, the researchers say. Which is just fascinating how our bodies, evolution, it's amazing how things change. However, neither study actually assessed individuals' phone use, so they really couldn't draw any concrete conclusions about whether the bumps were caused by device use. That is, of course, a hypothesis the researchers have made based on the demographics of frequent gadget users. So why have we jumped to the conclusion that we are growing horns? Teenagers are growing horns. Well, probably because we live in a world of clickbait. But causation issues aside, calling these growths horns is a bit of an overstatement. The growths in the latest study were between 10 and 30 millimeters, or less than half an inch to just over an inch in length. Certainly noticeable. Wow, actually that seems like an inch. Wow. But likely less dramatic than the mental image inspired by the headlines, especially in my case with the ram's horns. In addition, skull growths of this nature, albeit typically smaller ones, have been spotted plenty of times before. They're known to be the most common in men and are typically seen among the elderly, but young people have them too. A 2017 paper published in the BMJ notes that an occipital growth is normal, though sometimes painful, and, quote, often presents in late adolescence due to the growth spurts. Bone spurs can also pop up all over the body, literally from head to toe. So it's no secret, of course, that constant technology use is destroying our posture. The phenomenon of text neck or neck strain associated with staring down at a screen is widely reported, and plenty of people have experienced back pain after a day spent slouched over a laptop. These issues are cause for concern, of course, but they're not irreversible. It usually just takes a bit of mindfulness, stretching, muscle strengthening, etc., maybe reorganization of your workspace to improve your posture and alleviate the pain that comes with it. So we're not really growing horns. If you want to be melodramatic about it, you can say we're growing horns, but we have growth spurts. Bone spurs happen all over the body, and are they caused by our phones in this particular location? That is inconclusive at this time, but it is a pretty interesting story, and it'll be interesting to see if they do more studies to find out more causality and commonality for this particular intriguing growth. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and join me again next time when we'll find out what else weird is going on in the world.